Hey besties! Okay, so I know Bob Lazar is one of the most controversial people in UFO history. Think about it. Bob Lazar had this weird chaotic personality, he built jet-powered cars, and honestly, that's exactly why I think he might be telling the truth. Because if the government really had someone working on reverse engineering alien technology, would they choose the most polished, rule-following, perfect citizen imaginable? Or would it be someone intelligent, but rebellious enough to break the rules and eventually talk? He ran a fireworks and explosives business. He got involved in sketchy situations. He didn't exactly live like some perfect government scientist, and people use that against him constantly. But to me, that personality actually makes the story more believable. Because the kind of person willing to expose something this insane probably isn't the kind of person who fits perfectly into systems. The biggest argument against Bob Lazar is always the same: his background doesn't check out. People say MIT has no record of him, Caltech has no record of him. Some employment records are missing, and parts of his life are messy and inconsistent. But here's where it gets weird. Even critics admit there are strange things around him. His name appeared in Los Alamos directories. People confirmed he worked around advanced scientific environments. And he talked about Area 51 publicly before the government even admitted Area 51 existed. That part is important, because in 1989, talking about Area 51 sounded completely insane. Now, the government openly acknowledges the base exists. And then there's Element 115. This is one of the reasons people still can't let the Bob Lazar story go. Back in 1989, Lazar claimed alien craft were powered by something called Element 115. At the time, it hadn't officially been synthesized yet. Years later, scientists did officially create Element 115, now called Moscovium. Now yes, the version we created is unstable, so this does not prove Lazar was right, but it's still weird. And what makes Bob Lazar different from a lot of UFO people is that he never really acted like someone trying to become a cult leader. He disappeared from the spotlight for years, he avoided tons of interviews, and even now, he still seems uncomfortable talking publicly. That doesn't automatically make him truthful, but it also doesn't fit the typical fame-hungry fraud stereotype. And honestly, his story has stayed surprisingly consistent for over 35 years. That's hard to fake, especially with the level of technical detail he gives. Now look, I'm not saying Bob Lazar definitely worked on alien spacecraft. Nobody can prove that. And there's still zero public evidence of extraterrestrial technology. But I am saying this: if Bob Lazar was completely fake, he might be one of the most strangely committed people in modern history. Because he's been telling basically the same story since the 1980s, and some parts of that story aged surprisingly well. But the biggest reason I personally don't dismiss him is psychological. Most people capable of keeping huge secrets forever are exactly the kind of disciplined personalities who would never become whistleblowers. They follow rules, they protect careers, they stay quiet. Bob Lazar doesn't feel like that type of person. He feels like the kind of intelligent rebel who would eventually say, yeah, this is insane, and people deserve to know. And ironically, the same personality traits people use to discredit him might actually explain why he talked in the first place. That doesn't mean he's right, but it also means the usual arguments against him aren't as strong as people think. At the end of the day, Bob Lazar exists in this weird middle ground where nothing is fully proven, but nothing fully goes away either. And maybe that's why people are still obsessed with him decades later, because his story sits right on the edge between impossible and weirdly plausible. Also, if Bob Lazar really made the whole thing up, then honestly, Hollywood should hire him immediately, because the man invented the greatest sci-fi plot of all time. If you want more videos about UFOs, conspiracies, hidden history, and weird mysteries, subscribe, because Pink Candy Mandy is just getting started. And tell me in the comments, do you think Bob Lazar is a liar, or the most important whistleblower nobody believed?